Say record. Hello, recording. Yeah, think. There we go. Hi, Casey Wickstrom here with the Monday 5:30 Mindfulness Meditation half hour live from my room here in Cupertino, California. These are so much fun. I love doing these. It's really, really a lot of fun for me. And thank you for showing up. And a lot of people are watching the replays, and thanks for the Venmos, no pressure. If not, it's so much fun for me to be able to do this every Monday. I'm really glad that we kept this up from the Bright Heart days, which kind of feel like a long time ago, perhaps. I was talking with a friend about jobs and doing certain things for a living, and I had said how lucky I am to be making a living doing things that I would be doing for free, which is to say playing music, teaching yoga, even like hosting meditations, things like that. These are all things that I've been doing for free my whole life. And to be able to extend that into a professional realm, the amazing, amazing luck and fortune of that is not lost on me. Mindfulness is such a big part of my life. It has been the most transformative practice, and it continues to change me. It continues to shape me in different ways. And of course, mindfulness is practiced through meditation and stillness, formal practice. As I said last week, I think formal and informal practice. What we do here is formal practice. This is a sit down, still meditation. Whereas if you're mindful doing the dishes or mindful as you're driving, that is more of an informal practice. So the past day or so, something very interesting was happening to me. I was thinking about my ex, and there was a little bit of anger associated with that and the breakup and how, things had gone down. And I thought to myself, oh, wow, that's really interesting. I haven't felt angry in a while. And I just noticed anger. I feel it in my stomach mostly, and then it works its way up to my chest and makes my chest tight. And I thought, that's interesting that that's coming up. And I wrote a little bit about it. I said it feels very residual, and it feels diluted, not diluted, diluted, like watered down. And so it was barely noticeable, but I noticed it. And then I went about my day. And then I noticed if the previous experience with anger could be described as like a ripple in the water, then the second time I noticed it, it was more of a splash. And I thought, oh, it's getting a little bit stronger. That's interesting. And there's a story wrapped up with the anger, and there's a whole background to it. And I thought, that's interesting. Let me just see how long it lasts. And within a few breaths, it actually came up and left. I thought, interesting. That's cool. I'm going to just notice that, acknowledge it, and keep going about my day. And then later on in the day, there was a bigger splash. And I thought, wow, that is actually pretty strong. That's the strongest one so far. That's the strongest wave of anger so far. And I just noticed it, and I sat with it, and I felt with it. And I realized, wow, I'm not taking these emotions personally. And that is one of the benefits of meditation, is we learn to not take our emotions personally, which is funny because you think of an emotion like anger, it's like taking that personally and being angry. It's almost as though you can't have one without the other. We are conditioned to take our emotions personally because we think that that's how we should deal with them. But that's one of many different ways to deal with how you're feeling. And you can get to a point with enough observation where these feelings don't affect you in the same way because you are dealing with them consciously as opposed to unconsciously. And if you don't find ways to express and experience your emotions in conscious, healthy ways, you will express and experience those emotions, those same emotions, in very unconscious and unhealthy ways. And there's a kind of mindfulness metaphor that I had just read about or heard about. It said when we meditate, we make our body and our mind into a laboratory. I thought, oh, that's interesting. because laboratory, scientific, and you're experimenting with different things and just seeing what happens, looking under a microscope. We've used that analogy before, where we're looking under the microscope at a particular organism, the feeling of anger, or perhaps a physical sensation, and we're just noticing it without taking it personally, much like we would do in a laboratory setting. And to study our feelings, to study whatever's going on, to be aware of our experience can be a very liberating and enlightening, or I could say illuminating experience, an illuminating practice, because we're putting light on what once was unconscious, or we could say in the dark, in terms of emotions and conditioned responses and things like that. And laboratory is just one of, I would say, infinite analogies for meditation. We have looking at the organism, I like, because our bodies are actually an organism. We are organisms, part of a bigger organism. And that makes it easier to not take our emotions or our feelings or our thoughts too seriously, because we think, yeah, this is just part of the experience of being human, these feelings. And when we start to understand that, then we can move on. And I remember I said that one time. I said, once you understand something, then you can move on. And I thought, wait a minute, that's actually really important to think about. Once you understand something, then you can move on. Once you understand something about yourself, then you can continue to progress. You can continue to move forward. You can continue to gain understanding and insight about yourself, about the world around you, which is the same thing, actually. The more you understand yourself, the more you understand the world around you, because you are a part, are an organism of a greater organism, the world around you. There's a saying in Zen, you're perfect just the way you are, and there's room for improvement, which I like, because self-development is, it can be, at least, a never-ending journey. Yeah. I remembered something that I had said a long time ago, which is, when we meditate and with enough mindfulness practice, we get to decide how we want to experience our experience. Some of you may remember me having said that a while ago. How do you want to experience your experience? Because there's two different experiences there. The first is your circumstances, the feeling, the itch as you're meditating. Whatever the present moment, whatever is happening in the present moment, that's the initial experience, or the first experience. It's up to you how you want to interpret the experience, how you want to experience that. We talk about the two arrows. The first arrow hits you, and that's the circumstances. That's whatever the present moment is giving you at the time. The second arrow is your second experience, how you wish to interpret your circumstances, how you wish to deal with it. And this practice is powerful. I find myself saying things like, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to grow and learn from this experience. Mm. Like, what? That's so different from the way that I used to deal with things. It's so drastically different from the way that I would deal with the present moment, which was just fighting everything, fighting how I felt, fighting what I thought. There was so much tension internally, which then translated externally as well to people around me, and just there was so much tension, so much suffering in my life. And once the mindfulness and meditation practice and just observing these unconscious patterns and these emotions, and getting to a point where you don't have to take them seriously, they're just a part of the experience. How do you want to experience that experience? Because that's up to you, actually. And that's what creates the full, I guess we could say, the full experience itself. You can either deal with it, again, unconsciously and in unhealthy ways, or consciously and in healthy ways. And mindfulness and meditation help us to gain the capacity to be able to deal with whatever the present moment gives us with a little bit more grace and more understanding. And once we understand something, we can move on. I wanted to share something. I was talking with some friends of mine, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but the fingers on my left hand are significantly longer, noticeably longer, than the fingers on my right hand. And you want to know why that is? It's because I've played guitar every year for 25 years. Play guitar every day for 25 years. And my fingers have actually stretched and grown and gotten longer than the fingers on my right hand. Trumpet players, if you're really serious about the trumpet, you start to grow muscles in your bottom lip, muscles that would not exist if you don't play the trumpet. And if you stop playing the trumpet, those muscles leave. And all of this is to say that mindfulness is a practice just like any other. It changes you. It changes you in ways that can be cumulative. And also, if we don't practice, we can lose some of that. Not necessarily all of it, but in the sense that we stay where we are, perhaps, as opposed to continuing to move forward with our practice. And there's nothing wrong with taking breaks and all of that. It's the intention behind the breaks, or why are you practicing? Why are you not practicing? That's all very important. What we do, we become. Where we put our focus, where we put our attention, where we put our awareness changes us. That shapes us in every way, conscious and unconscious. When we start to meditate, we are exercising or training not just our mind, but our body. And it has been shown, just like the muscles in your bottom lip if you're a serious trumpet player, or the fingers on your left hand if you've played guitar extensively for over a long period of time, it shows that meditating, the PFC, or the prefrontal cortex of your brain, actually grows. You're growing your brain when you meditate. And that's not a figurative analogy. That's actually a scientific fact. You change your brain. Your brain is plastic. It's called neuroplasticity, which means that it's malleable. And we can literally change our brain, just like we can change the muscles in our bottom lip if we play trumpet, the fingers on our left hand. If we play guitar, we adapt to whatever we're doing because we are what we do. What we do, we become. Awareness is the greatest agent for change. A Chinese philosopher named Huang Po said that. Awareness is the greatest agent for change. Just watching, just being aware gives us the space to decide how we want to experience our experience. Just being aware allows us to first see the experience from a more objective standpoint. And then we get to decide how we want to deal with the experience subjectively, how we want to experience the experience, which is actually a choice. Once we start to realize that, it can really change everything. The more aware we are, the more we understand. The more we understand, the more we can move forward and progress. There's a book by John Kabat-Zinn. It's called Full Catastrophe Living. It's a great book. It's based on the 8-week MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction course that he does on the East Coast, I think, all over the States now, but it started on the East Coast. And he's talking about a diet, like mindfulness, a mindfulness approach to eating healthy. And he says, when you first want to eat healthy, when you first want to change your diet, don't do anything. You don't have to change anything at all. You don't have to add anything. You don't have to take anything away. Just notice, just observe as you make your way throughout your day. Notice what it's like to feel that craving for a particular kind of food. Notice what it's like to drive to that location. Notice the feelings that are wrapped up or involved in the experience of driving to a particular restaurant. Notice what it's like to get the food and to eat it. And how do you feel when you're eating it? How do you feel after you're eating it? All of that requires awareness. And with that awareness, that gives us the agent for change, because we can think, oh, wow, yeah, there's actually a lot going on here. I have a lot of emotional connections to food. We all do, one way or the other. However, the difference between recognizing that and consciously being a participant of our actions or our habits, as opposed to being a victim, an unconscious victim of eating or drinking or whatever, we get to be a part of that. We get to experience that experience from a conscious and mindful standpoint. And so as we make our way through the day, back to the diet, we start to notice what we're eating, how we're eating it, and why we're eating it. And with that awareness comes a little bit more understanding, or the seeds of understanding. And with a little bit more observation, we can start to notice these habits, because if you can't notice a habit, it's impossible to break it. If you don't know that you're tied up, it's going to be really difficult to untie yourself. And all of us have deeply ingrained, conditioned habits, many of which serve us and are very practical. Others may not. And until we observe, turn our body into a laboratory, or notice a TV set of your mind, or the aquarium of your mind, and the fish are all your thoughts just swimming around. Until we find that stillness and start to look deeply into the true nature of things, a lot of that would be inaccessible to us. A lot of the insights and the understanding will be inaccessible to us because we haven't put the work in. We haven't put the practice in to build the muscles in the bottom lip, the prefrontal cortex, the fingers on the left hand. The more we put into this practice, just like anything else, the more we get out. It's a cumulative practice, and it's powerful, just like anything. And the more light that we put on our life, the more mindfulness we generate, because mindfulness is an energy. The more of that energy we accumulate and generate, the more we understand. And when we understand, we can move on, we can progress, we can expand, explore, express, all of that. Other words that start with E and X. I was reading The 5 Establishments of Mindfulness. I bought a copy for my youngest sister by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's a study of the Buddhist Sutra, the 4 Establishments of Mindfulness. And if I had to choose one book on mindfulness and meditation, that would be the book. If I had Desert Island, one book on mindfulness and meditation, it would be the 4 Establishments of Mindfulness, with the notes and writings of Thich Nhat Hanh, really breaking down and discussing all of the parts. It's just very straightforward and so important. I think it's the most important book I've ever read. Fortunately, I don't need to choose just one book. I have a lot, and I plan on reading a lot more. But it was talking about the feelings, feeling the feelings and the feelings, experiencing your experience. And it said, when anger arises, you know that it's arising. When anger subsides, you know that it subsides. And you can breathe in and say, breathing in, I know that anger has been born in me. And breathing out, I know that this feeling will die as well. And it was talking about the birth and death of feelings. And I thought that's really cool. The cycle, or the circular, the circle of life there with feelings. And rewind to where I had started, which was residual diluted anger in regards to a breakup that had happened months ago. I thought, wow, that's really interesting. And I noticed I wasn't taking it personally. And I thought of that. I thought, well, yeah, that's because when I noticed that the anger was there, I noticed that it was being born in me, and I noticed that it was growing. And then I was there as it died away, because everything dies away. And we talk about waves, right? No matter how intense and how high a wave is, it always has to crash, right? No wave stays just as it is forever. And I love that analogy. And we talk about sound waves and brain waves, and there's all different kinds of waves going on. And every wave has a rise, a crescendo, and then a fall. And emotions are no different. The same could be said for thoughts and physical sensations. And by becoming aware, which is the greatest agent for change, by observing your body like a laboratory, or from a more objective standpoint, we can start to not take our experience so seriously or so personally. And instead, we can experience our experience in a more mindful and understanding way, because when we understand something, we can move on. This is all something to think about as we meditate today for the last, I don't know, maybe 8 minutes or so. Um, Notice, just give yourself the space to see how you're feeling, where you may be feeling it, what you're thinking, and try not to take it personally. Find a comfortable seated position. Spine is long, relax your shoulders, get comfortable, but stay alert. And start to notice the rise and fall of your breath. As you continue to breathe and tune in to your breath, notice the experience that you're having right now in the present moment. You may notice sounds, maybe the temperature of the room, maybe certain scents, smells. Also notice whatever you're feeling, or maybe more accurately, whatever you're not feeling, the absence of any strong feelings, neutral or pleasant or unpleasant. And notice the natural flow of your thoughts, how they're always coming and always going. This is the initial experience, what the present moment is giving us. Things that we have no control over, bodily functions, what we may be thinking, what we may be feeling. We may have some say, but for the most part, there's a greater force at work. Watching and noticing the experience that you're having is the second experience, the one you do have control over. Instead of allowing the underlying or primary experience to move us around unconsciously through past patterns rooted in pain, misunderstandings, suffering. Instead of that, we give ourselves the option to just watch. And that becomes our subjective experience. The choice we have of choosing how we wish to experience our experience. Take 3 deep breaths on your own. Gently blink your eyes open. When we practice observing the primary experience, whatever the present moment is giving us, what we're doing is creating space, the space between stimulus, our circumstances, and our response, the way that we choose to experience the experience. That space is mindfulness. Mindfulness is an energy that is accumulated through the practice of meditation, both formal and informal. Just like any practice, the more we familiarize ourselves with it, the more we condition ourselves to it, the more benefits we see. I want to thank you so much for sharing your practice with me. As always, we'll see you soon. Thanks.